All right, looks like it's time to begin. Hello and welcome. My name is Rachael Freeberg. I'm the president of the Pericarditis Alliance, and I'm also a pericarditis patient. The Pericarditis Alliance is a rare disease nonprofit dedicated to the diagnosis or the proper diagnosis, treatment, and management of pericardial disease through research, education, and support of patients, their caregivers, and healthcare. It's right here. We're not a medical institution, and although today's presenter is one of the clinical trials nurses at the Cleveland Clinic's Pericardial Disease Center, the information she's sharing isn't medical advice, and it shouldn't be relied on as a substitute for consultation with a healthcare provider. Any clinical information shared reflects current publicly available information, and it can change as the science evolves. If you have questions about your own health, your symptoms, or medications, or eligibility for any clinical trials, please consult your doctor. The Pericarditis Alliance has just come across a cool resource called TrialPort, which was recommended to us by Global Genes, a rare disease organization. And they TrialPort, Kaylee will put that link in the chat for all of you to take a look at. It can help with making decisions about in getting involved in clinical trials research. So a few months ago, the Pericarditis Alliance conducted a survey of its support group members, and it was determined that we prefer support groups and then also educational webinars. So that is why we're launching this webinar series. And for this inaugural session, we've decided to give you a behind the scenes look at how recurrent pericarditis clinical trials are structured. So clinical trials are intriguing, but for many people, there are so many unknowns that the process feels too intimidating to begin. So this is our effort to pull back the curtain. The goal isn't to recruit you for any kind of a trial, and we're not here to suggest or encourage any kind of a medication. We just want to give you information. Thank you for being part of our community and for joining us today. I'm going to start by introducing Rachael Landis, RN, BSN, and she is the Research Nurse Coordinator at the Cleveland Clinic Heart, Vascular, and Thoracic Institute. Welcome, Rachael.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks for having me and for giving me the chance to speak.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm really glad to have you here. So I'm going to start by getting to know a little bit more about you. And if you could, would you please just provide your background and how you came into the position of study nurse?
So I've been a nurse for 9 years now. As of a few days ago, the time really does fly. But I'm from Pittsburgh originally. I got my bachelor's there. I mainly worked in the ICU, and then I switched over to research about 3.5 years ago now. So I wanted something where I felt like I could help more people instead of just your individual patients. And it does have a really good work-life balance. And my son was starting school, so I'm able to spend more time with him. But yeah, I've been here for 3.5 years with the Cleveland Clinic. I work in mainly pericarditis trials and hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which is another rare cardiac disease. I have been working with Dr. Alan Klein for a couple of years now. We've really gotten closer as pericarditis studies have really ramped up. And the great thing with him is he's such a good mentor that he's taught me so much about pericarditis that it really makes these trials more interesting. And the patient population is really unique, and you actually learn so much from the patient. So I've really enjoyed it. I've really liked working with pericarditis.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for putting up with all of us. So as a clinical trials nurse, what's your role and who do you work with? You said you work with Dr. Klein. Is that it, or are there more people?
So what I do, I do nursing things too, but it's mainly study focused. So it's a lot of just what's specific for the study. So that's still vital signs and blood draws and things like that, and giving medications. But the investigational medications, there's a big data component to it, like what I do more so than you would see like with a bedside nurses, or gaining a lot of info from the patients, like looking for any side effects, all of their history and everything like that. I'd help talk to the patient from the beginning to the end of the study, even before they're in the study. I help to like screen them, which is like how we determine if you're eligible for the study. And then I help like consent them and just talk to them about the study, give them more info, even if someone isn't eligible or doesn't want to do a study. Like I just love to talk to them, tell them more about the study. So that's kind of how it's different than being a bedside nurse. Yeah, Dr. Klein, he is the principal investigator on these trials. So the principal investigator is the one who oversees the study at our specific study site. So for the studies, they all have different sites, and then like each study has their own principal investigator. So they oversee the patients that are on the study at their site. Like they review the labs, make sure they're safe, make sure they're okay to enroll in the trial. They follow the patient closely, conduct the exams, and they're someone who's an expert in their field. So like a lot of the doctors that I've met with pericarditis, like Dr. Paul Kramer, Dr. Klein, like they're all pretty much experts in pericarditis. So it's kind of unique in that way. And then I work with the study sponsors. So they're the ones that are conducting the trial. And then all of our people here that work on the studies. So we have like echo sonographers and MRI technicians. We have pharmacy. So there's a bunch of different people that that I work with on a daily basis.
All right. I think I'm going to ask more about that. So I'm going to just get into general, because you said you do hypertrophic cardiomyopathy too. So you're not just pericarditis trials. So in general, it sounds like there's a lot of people involved, a lot of entities. And you said sponsor. Does sponsor mean the like a pharmaceutical company?
Yeah, so the sponsor is the pharmaceutical company. There's some big names you've probably heard of, like when you see TV commercials, or the vaccines that are developed. Those are the big those are the study sponsors. So they're kind of the ones that are conducting to do a study. So yeah, they have a protocol where they design a trial, and then they present that trial to the FDA, that protocol. So the FDA has to give them approval before they, can start doing research, and then in patients. And then they work with a CRO, it's called. It's a contract research organization. And those people, like, they help actually like get the trial running up at the sites and everything. Like they kind of work close together with the sponsor. So yeah, there's a lot of different people.
There are, yeah. Okay. Interesting. Um, let's see. I think you said study site. What's a study site? Is that where like the patient goes to get to participate in the study? Is that what that means?
Yeah, they're mostly in hospitals. There's some like outpatient offices that conduct research studies, but mostly it's at hospitals.
Okay. And then how would a hospital, do you know how a hospital like becomes a study site?
So they do the study sponsor comes and they do like a pre-walk through of the hospital, kind of to make sure you have everything here that you need to actually do the study, like pharmacy, you have, safety equipment, a lab, if you could do the echocardiograms that are needed, and they'll talk to the principal investigator. So at least at our hospital, that's how they do it, is they'll just come and meet the doctor, kind of do a walk around and everything.
Okay. Interesting. So, and then like, do you know, I mean, this is probably a pretty general question, but like, um, maybe in some of the clinical trials you've seen, do you know how many study sites there actually are? Like for the whole, is it just the Cleveland Clinic or are there a bunch of them?
So there's a bunch. I've noticed that they do it at like mostly it's major hospitals in the big cities. Sometimes, it's smaller cities and places, but for the cardiac trials, like if you think of your big main cardiac hospitals, it's usually there. So overall, it's about like 10 to 30 sites.
Oh,
I know for some of the, yeah, 10 to 30, so it could be a lot because they want to get like a broad range of patients and give the opportunity to patients like that are in all the different states and at least have it spaced out, some like on the west, some on the east, and they want to get enough data. But I noticed recently they're doing a lot of trials in or sites are in Europe too. So there's always like a few in Europe, but some of these trials there's a handful in Europe and Canada. So it's kind of like a global thing.
that's awesome. Well, our counterparts in Europe and Canada will really want, I think they want us to do, they want some pericarditis trials going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any idea how many people on average are involved in like the studies across like an entire clinical trial? I'm sure that's just got to be a wide range of answers. Like there could be like what's a small study? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, so the smallest one, so I've worked on about 15 like drugs trials overall. It does depend. I'd say our smallest right now, it only has like 50 patients
Oh,
worldwide. Pericarditis is like a more rare disease too, so
mhm.
it's you don't need as I was wondering that when I was like, why is it like we have a cholesterol study? Why are they wanting like 5,000 people and then pericarditis, you only need these studies with maybe only 150 people. Um, it's just a more rare disease than, high cholesterol and things. So they're still getting the data, that they want and everything. But for pericarditis, it's around 50 to 150. Some of like your more common diseases, they could have thousands of patients. I think the one trial I worked on, as it was a little bigger, it was about 500 patients, and this one like 1,000. So it can
Yeah.
vary, and depending on the phase of it too.
We'll get to that. Okay. Phases. That was a new one to me. All right. So let's say that a patient wants to go on a trial, but there's not one close to them. Is that, do you know, have you run into patients that are actually traveling, and why would they travel to be part of a study?
I know, just speaking for Dr. Klein, a lot of our study patients they are seeing him clinically anyway. So like they're his main doctor because as you know, pericarditis unfortunately doesn't have as many physicians. So, people already are having to travel to Cleveland or Chicago or, to see these doctors. So they just decide since they already see him clinically, that they would rather do the study at our site. But we always, offer like to the patients, like I've one a patient, that wants to come from New York or from California, but you could definitely, do that closer to you if you wanted to. But some patients, since they already know the doctor, they just decide to come, here and they know the hospital, which makes it easier because you know where you're going and everything.
Yeah, knowing what's going on and what to expect makes it feel a lot better. Absolutely. I think I kind of asked you this, but like, so your role, um, how is your specific role different than the doctors, other nurses, study sponsors, recruiter, etc.? How, because you're not a recruiter, you're not like a bedside nurse, you are coordinator. That,
Yeah, I was gonna say that would be the word I would use is it's kind of like you're coordinating everything and you're kind of like almost like the middleman in some sense And then it's like you kind of put all the pieces together. So like every aspect of that, if you're the patient and you have a question or, getting them on the study, it's kind of like you're that person who can, or if you don't know, you're going to find it out. Like I'm going to find out, who I talk to kind of, and you work with everybody, like the pharmacy, you work with,
Yeah.
the doctors, and you
Okay.
kind of just putting all that in.
Okay. I'm looking at that. Like because I think we talked about that. You have the um, echo sonographer, pharmacist, MRI tech, lab personnel. So it sounds like all those tests are part of this process, and then you work with all those technicians and doctors and people.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Make sure everything gets done correctly. Make sure like that a trained person is doing it. You're
Mhm.
looking at you're still doing assessments, like we look at the lab values and the safety. So like
Okay.
that's a big thing, is looking at labs and the test results. Like we're the first person to see the EKG usually. So kind of like at the bedside, and then you're telling the doctor, hey, if this looks funny to me, or I think you should look at this. And so
Okay. That's kind of cool to know whose eyes might be on whatever information and data is being gathered. That's helpful to know. It's you.
yeah.
All right, now I'm going to ask for a little vocabulary lesson. So there's some study terms. I've heard of the word blind or blinded. Can you clarify for me what that means? I have an idea, but I need to make sure I get it.
So blind means that you don't know. Usually it's in reference to a study drug, but you kind of don't know what you're getting. One thing I learned that's interesting is lab values can be blinded in these studies, so or tests. So it's like they don't, to protect the integrity of the data, to remove any potential bias, where like, because the questionnaires and things, like you don't want someone to know what they're taking or not taking. So even lab values could be blinded, because um, if you could see your CRP, which is one of the markers for pericarditis, if it's elevated, it might be like, hey, this might not be working, or I might be going to have a recurrence. So one study we do, they blind the value of the CRP. Or I know for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, one of the things is the gradients on an echo, and some of the echo values. So they actually keep the echo blinded even to the study staff or the patient, because they don't want any type of outside thing to like influence with the, because you really want these to be like hard, that you don't know what you're taking in a study to get the best data.
Okay, so let's say if it's blinded, if I'm getting it right, then and my CRP is really high, and that's abnormal, and doesn't usually. It's not like you guys are going to be like, who cares about that? That's just a high CRP, but since it's blinded, we're not looking at it. That's not true, is it? Like then you'd flag that or something?
Yeah, they have like for safety, they have somebody at their the sponsor does, they have somebody that's always looking at it, and they would tell us like if it would need it. And we always can do, with all these studies that don't really want you to see echocardiograms or CRPs, which is only certain ones, it depends
Yep.
on the study. We can always order like something called local, where we're doing it, and we see all the results. Like if we have, hey, something's not, doesn't feel right, I think we should draw that lab value for safety reasons, or get that echo. We could definitely do that, which we do a lot. We check CRPs a lot, so to make sure that the patient's safe.
Great. Okay, that helps. Like we're not out at sea. You just no idea about what our labs are or anything like that. Somebody's paying attention, but in a very controlled way to make it the integrity of the research better. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, double blind. What is that?
So double blind is usually mostly it's always double blind, but it's that the patient and we don't know what
Oh, so that's what. Okay.
yeah. I mostly have done double blinded. So it's like we don't know, because that's a big question. Does the doctor know what I'm on? Our pharmacist doesn't know. So like
Okay.
what someone's taking. So it's just double blind.
Okay. Um, randomized? What does randomized mean?
So randomized is you'll see a lot of these studies are called like a randomized controlled trial. Of randomization is just the process of being assigned a certain treatment, and it's random. So um, it's a 50-50 chance of getting a drug or a placebo. And we randomize somebody electronically. They have systems set up where the computer people know somewhere, but we don't know like what you're going to get. And it's kind of cool. You go in and it feels like randomize the patient and enroll them, and they get like a kit number for these drugs or a lot number. It's just like a random 5-digit number, and it correlates to what we have stored at the pharmacy here on site. But like since it's just a number, we don't know was that the drug or the placebo, but it's just a way to randomly assign someone.
So you don't even know what they're
Mm-mm.
on. All right. I think I know what placebo means, but please clarify, what does placebo mean, and does every study have a placebo component to it?
So placebo is, you've probably heard it maybe called like sugar pill, or
Yeah.
it's just, it's a pill or a liquid, or it could be an injection, whatever the study treatment is. It's just it looks just like the study drug, which has the active component in it, but it's made with like it could be sugar or some type of just substance that's it won't hurt you or anything, but it's just inactive. Like it
Okay.
doesn't actually treat anything, but it's supposed to look, taste, everything just the same as the drug, so you don't know the difference.
And then does every um, trial drug have a placebo component, or do some of them not?
It depends on the phase of the study. So all of like the phase 3 trials, they have the placebo in them, but the beginning phases they usually don't.
Okay, interesting. So let's go to the phases. That's been another mystery to me. What is a phase of a trial? I just thought it was just one trial situation, one big study. There's Could you explain the phases?
Yeah, so there's phases 1, 2, and 3. Sometimes 4 is considered one of the phases. So the phase 1 is like the first time that the drug is being tested in humans. So before any of these drugs can be tested in humans, they do a lot of preclinical testing, which is
Okay.
what the FDA looks at before they approve a study. But they're tested in animals first to make sure that nothing major happened. They kind of get the safety and the dosing in the animals. And then the phase 1 is the first time like we're actually giving it to a human. So it's usually a small group of people. And they're mostly healthy volunteers. So
Okay.
unless maybe it's like a really rare disease, they'll do like the phase 1 in patients that have a disease. One of my gene studies for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is doing that, but mainly it's just healthy volunteers. They're testing it. And
Okay.
then the phase 2, so that is um more of a like a dose finding also, and then it's like the actual patient has the disease, so instead of just all healthy patients, um that phase lasts like several months to 2 years. The first phase is a little shorter because they're just kind of doing a shorter term thing. For the phase 2, I learned that the exclusion is also like more strict for these, so they really make sure like even if you have the disease that you're pretty healthy, because like they're still finding out about it, so it's kind of maybe harder to get into these studies, like the inclusion exclusion
Oh,
criteria, which I found because they kind of still don't know yet all the things about the drug. So they want to make like your kidneys can't have any issues or liver or things. Um, and then the phase 3 is like the final stage. So that's what it has to be tested with before it can be approved for public use. So this one's to confirm like if the drug's effective and monitor side effects. So those ones have a placebo component, which I know is a lot of patients, they kind of don't want to get the placebo, which I understand because that's a big question. It's like, am I going to get the placebo? But they have to have the placebo to make sure like it actually helps patients with the condition. Like they know it's safe, they kind of know what dose, but they have to have something to test it against. So that's why they're, have that placebo chance in there. And
Okay.
that's the biggest amount of patients. It's like can be hundreds or even thousands in that phase.
And phase 3 is the largest amount.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it would prevent me, not prevent me, but I would want to, I would be really have my fingers crossed that I would not be on the placebo because I am imagining I would just have a pericarditis flare. That would be my assumption, but I know we'll get to that kind of a question just to, and you said phase 4 is that it's
yeah, that one is the drug's already been approved, but they're still collecting like long-term data for it.
Okay.
So
okay. And then like I've heard this 1 of 2 or 2 of 3 as in reference to phases. Could you help me with that first, just a little bit?
yeah, so those trials, they combine the 2 different phases. It's one study is written under one big protocol. Yeah, so usually they're like consist of parts. So you'll have like one part of the study be like the phase 2, and then when everybody's done with the phase 2, it kind of transitions into the phase 3. They'll like take a pause a lot of times, like see how did the phase 2 data look. A lot of times it's easier because it's just one protocol. They don't have to submit, the study sponsor doesn't have to submit another application. They could still, have the same patients, just enroll into that other phase. So yeah, usually it's phases 1 to 2 and then 2 to 3.
I get it. Okay. I thought it was like 1 of 2, but no, it's 1, 2, 2, 3. It's a combination.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. So are trials looking for a cure, a long-term treatment? What, both? Probably.
So yeah, it depends on the study and what it's looking for. I'd say they're all trying to look for more information in some way to find out, if a drug's safe, if it has benefit. They look for all kinds of things, like if there's any interactions. But it depends. So some are looking for just like a treatment, like to treat symptoms. Some are looking for a cure. So others are like for pericarditis, looking to prevent a recurrence from happening. So some are looking for to treat the acute pericarditis. So like that initial. So it's all specific.
Okay. Interesting. I know got to kind of move along, but these are important questions here. The trial, how do, as you have observed, this isn't 100% how everybody does it, but like, how does a clinical, like a sponsor or a trial company or a pharmaceutical company, how do they find the drugs to use in the trial? Do you have any idea about that?
Yeah, so they kind of work hand in hand with researchers. So I think it's like the researchers might reach out to them, or they might reach out to the researchers to see if, anything is being developed or have been developed. They use a lot of drugs that are already out there on the market, I learned, because they're already safe and approved. So they could look at drugs if they have a different use, or maybe take a drug and make something similar out of that drug. So, and I did notice it seems like these trials like come in waves too. Like there's been a lot of For certain diseases, there's like a lot of gene studies up and coming, so it's like a big thing. Or I know pericarditis, like Dr. Klein says, it's like, hot and new, and it's still like a newer disease. So if it's a newer disease, we need more treatments and things. So they kind of, look at something that they need treatment for that doesn't have a lot of treatments.
I see. Okay. Lots of different reasons why they come to find how they find it and why they would be working on one. So the Pericarditis Alliance website only we have links to some of the pericarditis clinical trials, but we don't put any trial on. I don't even know of any trial actually that isn't part of the .gov, like clinicaltrials.gov website. Can you explain what that website is, please? So
Yes.
yeah, the
So
.gov.
clinical trials. Yeah, the clinicaltrials.gov. I even like to go on there and use it. I search for some of these trials on there, and it's awesome. But it's from the NIH, National Library of Medicine. But it's a place that you could go and see like what trials there are for specific diseases. So you could search anything like just general, you can narrow it down to where you might want to go, but it has a lot of info about the study, like what the main things are that would include you or exclude you, how long it is. I think everybody should like look on there if they're considering your trial, because it tells you so many things, like before you even talk to us, like where it's going to be. And it even has info for like who to contact. Maybe even the sponsor has a number on there, or sometimes our coordinator numbers are on there. So it's pretty helpful.
Is it accurate to say that not any clinical trial can get into that, can be posted on that website? Like it has to have undergone it has to like have gone through all the FDA regulations and vetting before it can be on that. Is that accurate? That you know of?
Yeah, for anything to be on there, it would have been approved by the FDA to be on there. There had to have been all that pre-testing and everything, and for them to even get approval to even, conduct the study.
Great, thank you. And finally, why are clinical trials important? This is the final question, but it is an important question just to help us all understand, from your perspective, why is it important for people to participate in, or for companies to do clinical trials?
Without these trials, like the drug couldn't be approved or tested. So, and your doctor couldn't prescribe it, so it's, without that, like all these drugs we have are because of these trials, because they need to show evidence or show it's safe or show that it's working, and even if they're not, like end up being safe, or maybe they don't work a lot of times, it's still so important because these drug companies learn info from that, so that when they develop a new trial, they can get more info, have more info. And it teaches about the disease too. Like they might learn a lot, or how a disease is different. So.
Great. Okay, that's helpful. I didn't even think about that. That even if it's sort of a fail, if it finds out it's not a drug that works, there's data is being gathered and information is being discovered.
Yeah, I had one trial, and because not that it wasn't safe, but it was showing that it wasn't working, the drug, based on an endpoint, which is what it needed to meet the questionnaires. But our investigator said, it shows like so much info about the disease, and, like maybe this treatment, which was similar to another, maybe they need to develop something totally different. So it really, can give you a lot of info, even though it feels kind of disappointing.
Yeah, cool. All right. Thanks, Rachel. All right. So now this next section is about pericarditis trials specifically. And we did have a question in the chat. What are the current medical trials out now for pericarditis? And are there any that we know that are coming down the pipeline soon? So I have my question for you is, please name the current clinical trials that you're involved in And then Kaylee will add the names of those into the chat because it's sometimes a little bit of a jumble of words and numbers and such and what's. And so Kaylee will give that information in the chat to everybody. But please tell us, what are the ones that you're involved in that are specific to pericarditis, please?
So these are the current recruiting trials as of a few days ago on clinicaltrials.gov. But Cardiol Therapeutics has the Maverick study, which is an oral solution. And then Canixa Pharmaceuticals, the makers of Berlonacept or Arcalyst, they have a KPL 387, C211, and C212. Those are two separate studies. The 212 is for patients that are on Rilonacept. Currently, those are both testing injectables, and then Eli Lilly and Company, they have an oral medication. It's called VTX 2735. I know of just one that we might be getting, so I won't speak on it. And I'm not sure of any more. I don't have too much insider information, but I know there might be another oral, medication that we might be getting at our site. So,
okay. And for clarification, again, this is just me knowing what is word on the street is that the Eli Lilly medicine was once Ventex, right? So if you've ever heard of Ventex, yes, that's the Eli Lilly medicine now. That's just coming from Rachael at Pericarditis Alliance. I don't know how true that is, but you said that's your impression too, Rachael?
Yes, they were Ventex Biosciences.
Yeah,
before,
okay.
So.
Same drug.
Yeah, and they've recently, same drug. Oh, that's the Ventex, yeah.
Okay. So as I know that most of this needs to be asked to the specific sponsor pharmaceutical company that's running the trial, but can you give me an idea of if these drugs all work in the same way in the body, or if they do a different thing? Do you know any of that?
Yeah, so some of them are anti-inflammatory, or they're like they're called IL-1 inhibitors from what I've seen out of these. So some like work on the inflammasome signaling, and then some like block the IL-1, which these are all things when you have pericarditis are, activated or increased as your inflammasomes and your IL-1 to cause the inflammation. So they kind of all differ how they work.
Okay. Is the inflammasome like the anti-inflammatory, and then the IL-1 is a different situation, or is that just getting too detailed?
Oh, yeah, the IL-1 is, so the inhibitors, they kind of work like right on that IL-1 alpha, and some work on the IL-1 beta, and then the anti-inflammasomes, yeah, they're like the anti-inflammatory ones.
Okay.
So those are more like I don't want to say like maybe treat more like the symptoms or whatever, but the IL-1 is like more specific.
That's what I've heard. So, okay, yeah, all right. I won't
like it more specifically triggers, or treats.
Yeah. Okay, and you again ask if you're interested, anybody watching this, go to the specific study sponsor or drug pharmaceutical company to get the real details about it. The best ones. All right. Anyway, all right. So you said something about an injectable or also oral. Are all of the clinical trial drugs injectables?
No. So there are some oral therapies now that we're studying, which is nice.
Yeah.
Some patients like oral as an option. So
yeah. And how about the biologics? I've heard the term biologics. Are all of these biologics? And please, what is a biologic?
So a biologic, so it's like, it's complex. So it could be a vaccine, injection, even gene therapies are considered. biologics, but they're actually like so large and complex. I found it interesting. They can't be absorbed by the stomach, so they have to
Oh,
be taken as an injection.
okay.
They're like made. They can be developed from cells or tissues, but it's like be made from proteins and however they make them. So it's more advanced, but they're targeted to a specific thing. So you hear a lot of like autoimmune, rheumatoid arthritis, certain cancers, genetic things. Technically, Arcalyst is a biologic, so
Okay.
it's like it goes narrowly, like targets that specific pathway that it needs to get to.
And then obviously then the oral uh, medicines are not.
Yeah, they're kind of more like a systemic type of thing.
Okay.
It kind of just, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Um, all right. Any idea if the current clinical trial drugs are used for any other illnesses besides recurrent pericarditis?
Not that I know of. They're kind of all for pericarditis. So
Okay.
I think one of them is actually like there's a similar drug. It's a like used for seizures in Europe or something. So other than that, though, all these other ones seem to, you know, be testing something a completely new use. So
Okay. And only for pericarditis right now.
hmm
Okay. All right. Um, just so as we're going, I know that this isn't actually the what I said I would do, but do you know of trials for constrictive pericarditis? That is just a question from the Q&A, which I said we'd get to at the end, but since we're here and I see it, any idea for constrictive pericarditis, if there are any kinds of medicines for that or trials? Not medicines, but trials for that.
yeah, I don't think currently a lot of them like exclude active constriction.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
but I can look into that. I can talk to Dr. Klein and see, I'd look
Question.
at the protocols more.
Yeah. Um, on the Pericarditis Alliance website, if not. And yeah, they are posted on the website under clinical trials. This is another question here being asked in the chat. They're on the website, and it is the link to the .gov site. So that would be the the what the Pericarditis Alliance has for the clinical trials as of now. All right, back to where I am. Let's see. So if I want to participate in a clinical trial, does it matter what caused my pericarditis or how long I've had it or how it's been treated? You said that there's like in the criteria for participating narrows as you get it higher into those phases. So if does it matter what caused my pericarditis, how long I've had it, or how it's been treated? Maybe that constrictive pericarditis question actually was right there. Like, no, you can't have constrictive pericarditis. But some other, like, what are the criteria, but if what caused it, how long you've had it, or how it's been treated, does that come into play?
Yeah, it depends on the trial. Many are for recurrent pericarditis. Even some of those trials will allow like you to be you could have stable recurrent pericarditis where you're not actively in a flare. Some need you to be actively in a flare.
Oh,
So that's a big thing is like some are stable, you're wanting to, come off of a medication, kind of a plan thing, and then others are like you're having acute chest pain, elevated CRP, and we try to get you started on the trial right away. Some are for chronic pericarditis where it kind of never went away type of thing, or incessant, kind of use that term interchangeably. Could be an acute like first episode. So they're all really specific. But since there's so many trials out right now, there's usually one for,
one for everyone.
everybody that, yeah. And for the constrictive thing, you can have like evidence of constriction on like your echo and things. But if it's like, I'd have to look more into that one, like if it's a really bad constriction. So
Okay. And now if I had if you have like lupus or something, would that exclude you? Do you know? Like if it's an autoimmune disease that caused your pericarditis, does that exclude you?
most, if not all of them exclude if the autoimmune was the primary
Yeah.
cause of the pericarditis, so that they get the best data. Like if your autoimmune caused it, they exclude a lot of or all trials do usually in general, but if you have cancer or
Oh,
tuberculosis, because and also blunt trauma, because trauma can cause pericarditis, but that's from a different cause, so that's usually excluded. I've never had that here though.
okay. Um, there's another question, and this might be a good time for this question too. So, and I think I know the answer, but I'll leave it to you. So there's this question that says they're tapering off an IL-1 inhibitor. And is there any kind of a trial focused on how to taper? Ooh, actually, I was thinking of the trial that's for the drug that you might use if you're trying to taper off. But this is actually a drug or a trial. The question is there a trial about how to taper? I don't think there is there?
No, that's the unfortunate thing. Is I know a lot of what I've learned from the patients is that they try to taper and they
Mm-hmm.
end up having a recurrence, which is, I'm like, I wish this disease had a cure. And that's like, it's really hard. I've learned from the patients that they kind of not, some don't get completely off, but they might get down to a good regimen for them. Like some patients might take the once a week injection every 3 weeks, or, we have some that can take it once a month and they do really well and they only are taking it once a month. So I think it just depends on how the patient does, and, working with your doctor and finding out what's best for you, kind of trying it out. And
Okay, so and I want to make sure that we all know that this conversation with Rachael is not medical advice, and we're all wondering how to taper off of Arcalyst. So I know that do that with your medical provider. And I too have talked about how I don't have to take my medicine as often, but it's very important to work with your medical provider in tapering off of it. Um, all
yes,
right. Thank you for that's a subject everybody wants to know the answer to. So
yes.
thank you for going into that a little bit. Um, all right. So let's say I'm going to participate in a clinical trial from the step-by-step process, at least in general, kind of from beginning to end. This could be a long conversation, but just what would give some help our viewers understand what it would look like from beginning to end, step-by-step process of participating in a clinical trial, if you could please.
Okay, I'll try to sum it up,
Sum it up,
not too
please.
long. Um, so so usually you guys know about these trials because you're very active in these groups and things. So a way is that you could bring it up to your doctor. That would be the best way. If your doctor might offer that trial at the site like ours, but going on clinicaltrials.gov. So if your hospital doesn't have it, you can go on there. There's a contact person. You could say, you can contact them and they could see how to get you in there. Sometimes the doctor will refer you to a study, like if you're at a site that has it, he'll talk to you first, like if as one of your treatment options sometimes, depending. But so then what you do is you come in for a screening visit. So even before that, we look kind of at your chart, talk to you, because there's some questions we could ask you, over the phone, like, are you taking such and such a medication that's prohibited, or do you have cancer, or are you pregnant, or, anything like that. And then we'll kind of get like a baseline. But if all looks like it would be good, then you come in for a screening visit. So we get lab values, get tests, make sure that you don't meet any of the exclusion and you meet the inclusion, which might be like having active chest pain or, having a certain lab value. There's some questionnaires, and then all of that. And then, with the doctor, the principal investigator, and then the study sponsor, they determine if you're eligible to participate. So then you would get the study drug. So that would be started at the next visit, or they call it like the day one or the baseline visit. And then you would start the study drug, and then you would keep coming in for the follow-ups and everything.
I have a question. I'm going to interrupt you. Rachel, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I'm curious, how long does that period take and I know in general, like, is that just a few days, or could I expect that would take 6 months for that initial phone call with you, going in and getting labs and determining if I'm eligible? Is that a long process?
Like, oh, that's a really good question, actually. Usually it's at least a week to a month. Okay. It takes longer if the study has to send lab results out to a central lab. So the results, they don't sometimes take too long, but like maybe they take a week to come back or so. Reaching out to like someone and getting them scheduled, it depends on, I guess, the hospital and everything, but we usually can get people in to actually come in like no more than a couple weeks, and then to get all that stuff back. Maybe we've screened and gotten somebody in just from personal experience, like sometimes even the next day when we've done local labs, we've had somebody in active pain. For some of the studies, you need to be in an acute flare. So, but it's always so it could be as soon as a day or two, but mostly you have a week to a month for like that window.
Cool. Thank you for letting me interrupt you. So I think we were at sort of like the window. You're getting screened. Let's say you are admitted to the trial. Then what?
So you're admitted, and then you come on to the trial. So that would get involved, coming in for the study visits. So they're about, it depends. In the beginning, they're a little bit more frequent. Maybe you do your day one, you get the drug, and then maybe come back in like 3 to 5 days, or some, it varies. So you could do that, and then it's 3 weeks later. And the visits do space out. So if you're in these trials for, some are as short as 6 months, some are like a couple years or so. So the visits space out though, usually. So then you don't come in every couple months. There's phone calls though. So we talk to you on the phone a lot. When you come in, there's tests though at pretty much every visit. You get the labs, EKGs, all the safety things.
You get poked, labbed.
Yes.
Poked, imaged. Okay. And that's pretty much every time, because they're just making sure they collect all the data necessary for the numbers to watch what's going on. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And let's see. You said earlier, I think this is a question down the road, but since you said it, it's right over here. So what is informed consent? Does that mean, am I like signing my life away? Does that mean I'm doing something really dangerous what is informed consent maybe first? And is it, why do they have it?
So it's to protect your rights as a patient, and explain the study, kind of explaining what you're consenting to it. It's important. I would recommend like actually read it all. It's very helpful. It tells you about the study, and you should read it all so you're informed, but it tells you why they're doing it, what's going to get done at each visit, even your blood, how many milliliters of blood they're going to collect. It talks about the risks, but also the benefits, has well, just for ours specifically has like the payment information in it, even has like the doctor's number, who to contact, if you need to. So, and it can be withdrawn at any time. So,
Okay.
but it's an ongoing process. And if there's ever, changes to the study, we make a new consent form with updates and things. So
That's a good point.
it's to protect you though.
Okay. So let's say I want to get into the trial. I got admitted. Um, do I even need to have my regular treating doctor, cardiologist at that point? If maybe I'm doing a trial at the Cleveland Clinic, I have a doctor over here in Oregon. Do I need to even see that doctor anymore? My regular treating cardiologist, or is this a whole different thing? The trials.
It's separate.
Okay.
I would recommend, if it was me, like what we do here is we always have you, even if you're seeing like our doctors and they're your clinical doctor, we have you follow up with them after the trial's over. Kind of keep your like regular appointments with them though. Like,
Okay.
so say you were due to see them, but because the tests might be different and some of the results we might not see, and it's just so it's always important to, still have your regular doctor and do everything you need to, um, for yourself with, your doctor.
Do you know if this isn't on the questions we've talked about, but I bet you know the answer. So let's say I have a doctor over where I live and I go to Cleveland Clinic and be part of the trial. Does that doctor that's my treating doctor, are they communicated with? Is this a continuity of care situation? Do they get informed, or is it a secret over there at the trial site? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, we give you a card that has like our number on it too, and you should always, keep it in case, because you should tell everybody like that you're in
Okay.
contact with that you're on the trial. And we actually talk to other like if you needed, sometimes they don't want you to take certain medications or something might
Okay.
interact, like they'll talk to each other and say, hey, can my patient take this, like they're your doctor. So because it's important that they talk to, the study staff, since you're on this drug, and maybe your doctor doesn't know much about it. So,
All right. So you should make sure that your medical team knows that you're on the trial. Okay.
yes.
All right. Well, thank you. Oh, okay. So are clinical trials covered by insurance?
No. So the studies, they pay for the clinical trial for everything that's related to the study.
So a patient isn't paying for themselves to be part of a clinical trial. They're
No.
this is all paid for by the study sponsor or the pharmaceutical company. Does the patient get paid for participating in the trial?
Yeah. So most of the studies, they usually always cover the travel expenses, like, and it can vary, and there's a whole internal budget department that negotiates, but usually they'll pay for the flight and the meals or the hotel, and then sometimes you get a stipend too.
What's a stipend?
So that is cash that you get for being in the study. So it could be a certain amount that you get, when you come.
Okay, thank you. Um, so we talked a little bit. It sounds like won't cost me, like I won't have to pay to do it, and maybe even my travel gets covered, or in some food or whatever that I might get at the Cleveland Clinic's uh, cafeteria, maybe at lunchtime. Who knows? But what otherwise would it cost me financially, or even in an indirect way, to participate in a trial? Do you know that, or in general?
I think indirectly, like maybe needing, taking some time off of work to, come in for these visits, or rearranging your work schedule, or, if you have kids, like having somebody watch them for you. And I think it's a time commitment. It's definitely something to
Mhm.
know about. Like this is a
Yep.
and you it's really important to communicate with the study. So, it's not like you could just like you're gonna should talk to us like if you, God forbid, you were in the hospital or you want to take a new medication. It's a lot of like asking us first, or and being willing to communicate like, hey, something happened, even if it's not related to your pericarditis, it's still all important. So
All right. Has to kind of be part of your life for a while. You have to make sure you remember you're on the study drug. Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Um, and you said something about like sometimes they last 5 months, sometimes a couple years. Am I signing up for a couple years of getting poked and pictures, imaging, and communicating and going? Is that something that I would be committing to if I'm going to participate in it? And is it like a 2 year commitment sometimes?
Yes, for the most part. Some of those like beginning trials, like the phase ones and twos, they're not as long. They're like
Okay.
could be just say, but yeah, it is a commitment. I will say that the visits do space out. Like they get less frequent. Sometimes there's a phone visit in between. So and it's a way to, get the study treatment too, and
Mhm.
so you're coming in and you're getting that, and at least it's one, good thing about it is you're getting that. And
I have been to the Cleveland Clinic not as a treatment, but as a patient, not as a trial person participant, but as a patient, and I call it the Cleveland Clinic Spa because you're there all day getting all the all the things. Is that a
yes.
long? So, like, if you're going, let's say you go maybe every 2 weeks, maybe once a week, maybe once a month. Is this a day long Cleveland Clinic spa activity, or is it a shorter, like you just zoom in, you have your ticket, you go get your blood drawn, and you're done? Do you know? I mean, does it range? Obviously, probably, but like, how long would I expect to go get evaluated each time I walk in the Cleveland Clinic for a trial meeting? How long does that last?
I'd say on average, it's only about 3 hours, really. I mean, I that could be we have it down to like a process the coordinators and I work with, and so I guess it could depend on where you are, but just based on the beginning visits, there's a lot of activities, so those
Mm-hmm.
are usually longer, and you're like assessing, and sometimes you're asking the sponsor questions, or the coordinator is. So that one can be longer, like 6 hours, like when you screen and you actually get the study drug. But the follow-ups, they're not too bad. I think you probably spend more time traveling here
Probably
sometimes, but
in traffic.
yeah,
Okay. All right. Thank
yes.
you. And it looks like maybe, yeah, like, okay, so it could be once every couple weeks, once a week, once every couple months, could be Zoom, could be a phone call. Those are all ways that the visits during the trial, those are all ways that they work. Um, and I think you answered this. Like, we answered if a clinical trial counts as medical care. You said no. Um, how about what are the tests done at at a visit? I mentioned a couple that I'm just assuming, but could you give us an idea of what to expect would be the regimen of tests that a participant would have to experience during a trial visit?
Laboratory testing, that's pretty much always a given. We do EKGs, electrocardiograms, the rhythm of your heart pretty often. For pericarditis, echocardiograms are a big thing. So we do those, not every visit, though. Those may be at the most once a month, sometimes, once every 6 weeks.
Okay.
Some of the studies do MRIs, pericarditis. That's a big thing. To see your heart. So and sometimes those are optional. Like sometimes, well, not the echoes, but the MRIs, you could opt into doing them because some patients can't get an MRI. But another thing we do is like actually giving you the study medication. You always get new study medication. I know that's a big question is like you'll get it and then you'll bring all the old stuff back even if it's empty, and then we resupply you, and we do accountability. So it's a way to make sure you're taking the medication, and so that's why we give you new stuff. But you'll see the doctor
Okay.
majority of the time, ask you a bunch of questions on what's been new and medications and things.
Okay. So you want proof that we've actually participated by our empty vials. Okay, that's funny.
Yes, those are a big thing.
And you said labs, but I'm assuming a lab is blood draw. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
urine, sometimes we collect
Okay.
urine,
Okay. Um,
not every time, but
yeah. Okay. Anna, you said something about having a number and a lot and all that. So people are, data these days is important to keep private. And do you, when, how would a person's personal medical data be shared? Like, does it get, is it protected? Does it only go to a couple people? Does it just go straight to the sponsor pharmaceutical company? How does that work?
yeah, so the patients they get you get a unique study ID number, so nobody could know it's you. It's just like random numbers, but it only goes to like data. So we collect some data like your history and what you're taking into an approved like data entry system. That's another thing is it like has to go through rigorous approval with cybersecurity before, we could even type stuff in there, even if it's de-identified, like it won't have your name. And then we do send images of your heart, to the study sponsor again and like their doctors look at it and everything, and but that won't have your name on it at all. So it's just the pictures, and it's all just like by your study ID number.
Okay. All right. Sounds pretty protected. Um, all right. So I think I don't know if I would know or not, but like we talked about placebos, and let's say you do a study and you're done with the study. How do you even know? Would you even ever know if you were on the placebo or not?
Yeah, I will say, just from my experience, it sometimes takes a little while, but after a study is over, like the whole study, they wait for, all the participants to finish, and they analyze the data and whatever else they do. The sponsor will tell us what you were on. So we don't know until then, but they send us like a protected document with just the study IDs, which we know your name of, and then it will say whether you were on the drug or the placebo. And then what I did for the other trials is just call everyone, and say what you guys were on, and
All
but
right.
sometimes it could take a minute.
Yeah, a little while, a few months or 6 months or longer than that.
Yeah, it's just not when you were done with the study, it's kind
Right.
of at their grace that we can find out. But yeah, it sometimes could take a year or two.
Wow. Okay. Um, okay. And what if, let's say that I'm part of a study and I got the placebo and I get a flare. Um, what happens?
So the way we handle it here is if you suspect any type of thing, or you start feeling funny or start to have chest pain, we have you contact us, and then we usually check a CRP, like even if you live far away, but we get those lab values checked, or any other labs a said rate, and have you talk with us, the doctor, um, and then it depends if you're having a true flare. A lot of these protocols have a rescue therapy, which means you could like, they could add things to, while you stay on the study treatment. But if your doctor feels you need to start, back on whatever you were taking before and it's safe, and
Mhm.
um he's gonna, well, hopefully do whatever is best for you clinically, at the end of the day. But it's important to, talk to your doctor about it so that they can manage it. And they manage it usually along with the study sponsor.
Oh, that was my
But
question. Yeah. So like your perhaps your doctor who you're still in touch with, but also then whoever maybe the principal investigator is might chime in. Is that accurate?
yeah, I
Okay.
think it's the best idea to contact the study site, if you're still on the study. So
Okay. Um, and then yeah, how do you like so if you're not let's say you're having emergency or a flare, do they have a contact information for the study site, for you, for a general number? How does that, if I'm on the study, maybe something else happened, I get, stub my toe and I'm in the emergency room or something. Do I need to call you guys?
yeah, it's always good to call, if you're in the emergency room or hospitalized. If you're having chest pain, I know here we have a emergency number where you could get a hold of. The doctors are co-investigators, so those are the people that work along with the principal investigator. And usually, well, our co-investigators, they're also well versed in pericarditis too. They see those patients too, so they'll kind of be able to, handle it. But we always have a way to be contacted. And then I have my work phone. I always tell everyone, you could call me, and at least during the weekend. Usually I always talk to the patients, which is the nice thing about being on these studies, is like you kind of get that extra person to talk to, or even just send a text whenever. It doesn't have to be during the scheduled times of like the phone calls or when you're here. Like always say reach out even
Okay.
in between.
All right. Thank you. That's helpful to know that that someone on the trial has support, can reach out to someone if some flare up happens or something. There's a contact, there's a discussion. It's not just kicked to the curb, or maybe it is, who knows, but that it gets looked at individually for each person, it sounds like.
Yes, and the study sponsors all have a medical monitor, which is a doctor who monitors the study. And they always have a 24/7 number, so like we could contact them because they know that they won't ever know who you are. They'll just know you're a patient at the site, but
Mm-hmm.
they know the study drug, so they could, like look into more things. And and they're available too, which is nice
Okay,
if
cool. Thank
anything
you.
ever comes up.
Thank you. That's interesting. And then after the trial, do we have to say goodbye to our clinical trials nurse? Do you say, do you sign off and say good luck to you, or after the trial, does the patient still have the ability to contact the site, or are they done and they go back to their normal lives? Or do they have a commitment to have to follow up with the site?
They usually just have technically, like you do like a last phone call per se per for the study, where like a month after the drug, usually your last dose, whether you came off the study or whether you're finished the study, and then that's the last time we like actually give the sponsor any data or anything. But you could always reach out because we can always tell you about more trials in general, or especially if your clinical care is here, like we'll run into you and everything. And like I would always say, answer general questions. I think they're usually always there.
All right. So, um, not a commitment afterwards, but you guys are available. Um, and um, yeah, it sounds like people get pretty well supported. I see another question, and since it looks like we have like 15 minutes left, just have a couple more questions. The burning question for a lot of people, other than how do I wean off of an IL-1 inhibitor, is this next couple. But before that, do you know, this is a question that says, which recurrent pericarditis trial is closest to being finished? And if you know that answer and can share what treatment is that study testing? So what if do you know of any that are close to being finished or the closest to being finished and what it's treating or how it's treating, what the treatment is? That's the word.
Yes, I would say the Maverick study is, it's close to finishing its anticipated enrollment. That is an oral cannabidiol. So um, overall, I know we started that one in August of last year, but overall, that one is, I would say, is the closest to being finished.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
That's the cannabidiol. I don't know how to say that. And
That's hard to say.
it is. That's cardiotherapeutics medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And although I want to just say what I know about it, I'm not going to because it's just not at all scientifically sound because I'm not the doctor, but I think it's one of those to help wean off of another medicine, but do not quote me. All right, last couple of questions. Let's see. What if I am on the trial? I have not felt as fantastic as I finally do. This medicine's really helping me. I do not, like I'm feeling normal. Life is great again. Something's going right. And then the trial ends. Would I be able to use that medicine while it's pending FDA approval?
If the trial ended, unfortunately not. So, which is the hard part. But
Ouch.
Usually if you've completed the trial and we just monitor you and see how you're doing. But
Okay.
or if you needed to go back on, what you have been doing, or maybe try a different option. But yeah, if you're still on the study and it's it gets FDA approved while you're on it, you could just keep taking it. And but yeah, unfortunately, if it doesn't get FDA approved or you're waiting for it to be FDA approved, we just kind of follow you. So that's why it's important to have your follow up with your cardiologist. I always say, like what we do here, have an appointment scheduled so they can keep watching you and everything.
Okay. So sometimes it sounds like studies get FDA approval, even maybe when someone's still on a clinical trial. I guess that'd be the phase 3 situation. Is that?
Yeah, we can, but you keep getting the study drug and coming in for the visits. But some of these, the nice thing is some of these trials, they have all the insurance you got to go through and do everything with even when it's approved. So this way you're still kind of coming in and not as often, but and we're still getting some data and everything. And you don't have to deal with how am I going to get this medication now to my pharmacist with the pharmacy and everything else. So,
Okay. It doesn't happen always like that, but that is something that can happen. Okay, great. We are at the end of our questions, Rachel. Thank you so much. Is there anything, and I've gone through, it looks like all the questions that were on the Q&A, I believe that we were able to do them in real time. So that was awesome. Double check that Kaylee isn't communicating with us at all. And let's see. Okay. Let's see. I have here, do all trials. There is a question about like cover if trials cover patient costs for medication, clinical visits, labs, and imaging. We covered that, and it sounds hopeful that they probably do. I know you can't quote us on that, and we're not the very end decision makers, but it sounds like in your experience, Rachel, that you've noticed that the sponsor or the pharmaceutical company helps with the cost of a participant's experience in the trial.
yes, I think it's it's important to ask even beforehand, like when you're on the study, if you any gray area, like is this being done clinically or is this being done for the study? They kind of, if it's not for the study, they don't really
Mhm.
pay for it. If like,
Sure.
and sometimes it's a gray area where, I'm here, but I needed this kind of because I'm in the study and I'm having an issue. So I would say it's best just to talk, even ahead of like when you're having these tests, like who's paying for this? And also with reimbursements, they're sometimes particular in the language, which sometimes surprises people, or like,
Ah,
don't quote me, but they might not cover the flight for your significant other. So
yeah.
it's definitely, I can't speak for all the hospitals or what they do, or sometimes it's the sponsor that's willing, but they all have their own budget things. And so I would just ask a lot of questions like, do you cover rental cars? Do you cover Ubers?
Mhm.
Do you cover the flight of my husband? So just, I'd say ask all the questions.
Great, great pointer there. Thank you. Um, I have it here. This is an interesting question. Would it be possible to switch doctors to have principal investigator become the primary cardiologist after the trial? Have you ever seen that happen, Rachel? Maybe that would be an answer instead of if it's possible, because I'm sure different trial locations have different answers to that. But like say somebody's come to the trial and they really appreciate the care they're getting from your team, from Cleveland Clinic, from Dr. Klein's office. Is it possible then to switch to that to like Dr. Klein, to be your cardiologist? Is that something that you've seen happen?
I have not seen it here because most of our patients have already like been seeing him or one of our. I've seen a lot of they've seen another doctor here and then they kind of, you know, sometimes their doctor like refers them to Dr. Klein or but they've already been coming here. But I think um as long as you'd have to check if your insurance pays, but I think like the doctors would be more than willing to see a patient. I think the one thing is just the cost of travel that, if you live far away from some of these doctors. But yeah, it's up to you. We see a lot of patients come from all over to see, Dr. Klein or some of our other specialists. So,
Mhm.
and they have to pay for that cost, but I know I would, but I'm biased, I guess, a little. But
Thank you. And very good question. I was going to ask it myself, but one of our people in the chat saying, is there anything Rachel Landis needs us to know about this that Rachel Freeberg did not ask? So is there anything else that I haven't asked about that you want to make sure that somebody thinking about a trial, a clinical trial, that they know or remember to ask, or any other information that maybe I haven't brought up yet?
I think you asked a lot, so that is good. I think it was helpful. I think just talking to your doctor, thinking about all of the options, asking questions, and I do think that clinicaltrials.gov is helpful. It has a lot of info on it, or even the sponsor website. So, they tell you a lot of what's been tested, and a lot of the questions the patients ask me is like, oh, what if other studies show, or like what if the pre-study shown? A lot of the drug companies have that on their website. There's a lot of helpful articles and everything.
Okay, that's helpful. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, so go to and I think since I don't think we didn't put the names of the trials in the chat, like the specific sponsors or pharmaceutical companies, but we did put the clinicaltrial.gov links. And so then you can find that in, you can find you can find contact to the sponsor in the .gov site, I believe. And
Yes.
definitely take a look at that one, at their website, at all their information. I'll bet you could even call them. I bet there's a
I
place to
was gonna
call.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, they even have like a person you could, talk to and maybe see, hey, what sites are recruiting, or even they might have some specific answers to things, about the drug.
Great. Cool. This has been super helpful. And it's been quite a mystery. I think I know what I'm thinking about when it comes to clinical trials, but the more I know, the more I realize my imagination's going in a different direction. I have a better idea of what to expect. I have one that I'm really curious about participating in, and I've kind of put off looking into it. But just getting more information, having more ways to think about it is kind of motivating me a little bit more to push a little further into what this experience would be like. So thank you, Rachel. Let's see. Kaylee has put in the chat our info at pericarditis.alliance.org if you have questions, so please do that. Thanks everybody for watching. And if you're watching later on in the future over our website, thank you for participating and watching and supporting the Pericarditis Alliance. And we hope this has been helpful. And
All right.
see
Thank
you
you,
all next
everyone.
time. Thank you, Rachel.